Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with drdan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one sessions in both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV therapy and coaching services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoachddanamzallag.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our fifth episode of season 11, author and publisher Bracha Goetz. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to probably introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Bracha, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. And I'm not exactly a publisher. I'm just an author.
Okay, sorry.
but yeah. So I'm the author of 40. I call them 40 books that help children's souls to shine.
Okay.
That's what they all have in common. And then one memoir is about my journey. That's the only book I wrote for adults. I didn't exactly write it because I love to write these short books for children. This book, I compiled it from my diaries and journals and letters. I filled in the missing pieces, okay. And it's so that it's kind of a case study. It's like a documentary. It's like the real thing. Yeah. So you could actually see how I gradually developed food addictions and how I healed from it. Yeah.
So that's your memoir that you wrote about. Okay. And you said you didn't write it. So does it mean that you had a ghostwriter?
No, I just mean that, like, I didn't sit down to write it. I more compiled it.
Oh, compiled.
Okay. I took excerpts from actual diary entries, journals. It goes from age 12 to 32. So it's 20 years, and I took out things and put it together.
So how do you deal with your food addiction, or I would say your food, the connection that you have with food, the relationship that you have with food? Well, what was originally the problem?
It was, as it developed gradually, I was fluctuating between binge eating and restrictive dieting. So from the outside, you could not tell how I was suffering. In other words, I wasn't obese and I wasn't extremely thin, like I needed to be hospitalized or anything like that. People could not I looked like a success. I just graduated from Harvard. I was in medical school. And meanwhile, I was living in prison. I was living in the prison of my addiction.
Well, so what kind of medical school did you, what kind of like a branch in medical school did you do?
Oh, I was studying to be a psychiatrist. At Harvard, I majored in psychology and I was pre-med. And then at medical school, I was studying. I mean, that was my goal, to become a psychiatrist.
Is it because you suffering from those food addiction or food disorder, I would say, that you wanted to get into it to be able to better understand it?
Yeah, at Harvard, I was the expert on eating disordered behavior. I was giving classes on it. I wrote about it. It's still, actually, what I wrote about it is still being used in like women's studies courses around the country in an anthology that was published. So I was doing this breakthrough work just to show that what you understand intellectually does not heal you. It didn't at all. I'm an expert and I'm getting sicker and sicker all the time. That's what I was going through.
So what did you do to be able to manage? Did you think that the writing of the memoir helped you better understand and going through all the different elements that you gathered, that you compiled together, that helped you understand better this disorder, or what really helped you get out of it after you hit age 32?
What happened, the memoir, what happened in the memoir, it's kind of a psychological mystery, because when I put it together, that's when I had an epiphany at the end of the book. As I'm putting it together, I finally came to understand, why was I able to heal? What helped me heal? Why, when I finally found spiritual nourishment in life, what did that have to do with healing from addictions? So that's what the book is about, and that's what I'm sharing about. That my belief is that there's widespread addiction because of the emptiness that we have inside. And we try to fill it up with by physical means. In fact, the more empty we feel inside, the more desperately we try to fill up that hole with externalities. But it's never going to help, because it's not a physical hole. It's a spiritual hole. So the book goes through, how did it happen? Why, when I finally found my spiritual roots, was I able to heal? Why was I no longer running on empty? How did that nourish my hungry soul?
Well, literally and figuratively, because you are dealing with food disorders or eating disorders, yet you want to be able to nourish with the right elements to be able to fill that void, to fill what's missing inside you. Was it mostly bulimia or anorexia that you deal with?
I thank God I didn't have bulimia, because that's like when you throw up or you purge after binging. Thank God I could not do it. I tried, but I could not do that.
Okay.
So that saved my life, probably, because it was the binge eating. And then after I would have these horrible binges, then I would eat in such a restrictive way, that so that I wouldn't gain all that weight I get, from all that food that I ate. So basically it was just one or the other, fluctuating. It had nothing to do with being physically hungry. Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel that sometime when you were binge eating, was it because of the stress that you were dealing at Harvard, that you were like trying to fill that kind of like missing element that was not fulfilled when you were during your school years?
Well, I really enjoyed being at Harvard. Like, I had a blast there. It was all filled with interesting people.
Can imagine.
And
Smart.
yeah, it was very creative and interesting. So I wasn't really stressed there at all. I mean, I just enjoyed it. I went there because I was searching for wisdom so desperately. And I figured I love to learn about everything. So that's why I did well in school and I got into Harvard. I love learning, but I was really on a search for wisdom in life. And that's what I didn't find there. I didn't find the wisdom that I was craving. So that's why it just got worse. I just didn't find what I was looking for. And it was disappointing, actually.
But throughout this journey, Bracha, do you feel that, outside of the school environment of Harvard, you getting into your own path, your own personal journey without the help of books or anything of that sort, was there like some kind of enlightenment that just kind of like something that popped in your head to say, Eureka, I found my journey, or I found my path, or I found my calling? And when did this happen?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. In between my first and second year of medical school, I had a 6-week vacation. And I went to Israel and I didn't come back for 10 years. So it was a huge change. And that summer, I found what I was looking for. I was able to return to my roots. I mean, my parents, they were wonderful, but they never had a spiritual education. They were never given that in their life. So they didn't have that to give me. So I was searching for what had been thrown away, what was lost. And I was able to find it. And I was astounded even to find out that Judaism was spiritual, because I didn't know that. I mean, I just saw the cultural aspects of it, you know? So I was fascinated, and it was crazy because right away it nourished my soul. I went to a class where some of the words were in Hebrew and I didn't understand them, and it didn't matter. I still got the gist that I had found what I was looking for. It really filled me up. Yeah.
And now that you're back here in the US, do you feel that getting away from that spiritual realm that Israel offered you, do you feel that there's still something missing in your life because you're not back at the chosen land?
Good question. I took on a whole religious way of life from that point on. So when I came back to the States 10 years later, I was married with 5 little children, and and I have had a whole new way of life, a life where I follow guidelines that all have to do with mindfulness exercises. It's all about gratitude. From the minute I wake up till I go to sleep at night, there are gratitude exercises filling up my day. And that changed everything. Like when I began searching at age 12, it was like, is this all there is to life? We get up, we go to work, we make money to buy food, to go to work, to make money. Like, what's the purpose? And now I could say it's still that. I wake up to go to work, to make money, to buy food. It's the same thing, but it's transformed because now I understand that it's all for an ultimate good, that it's all about goodness, that life is full of blessings, which is not how I saw it before. It's like I was drained of morals at that lowest point in my life when I really didn't even want to live anymore. And it was like the world was gray, and now the colors could return because it's now like it's now like I'm in a garden. And I can have gratitude and appreciate life.
So how did you get into, like, at 12 years old, having an existentialism crisis right before your bat mitzvah?
Yeah.
And then start wondering what really is the purpose of life? I mean,
Yes.
at 12 years old, people are just like, most of them are like, either on 7th grade or like, well, depending exactly what educational system. I'm from Canada, so this is grade 7 or grade 8. And, they still are trying to find themselves. They're going through the puberty. They're going through like different changes, physiological and physical changes in their body. But yet the mind doesn't catch up. It seems like there's a disconnect between the mind and the body at that age. So how did you react to that sudden mental and spiritual change that you had at 12 years old to start looking at life with a different pair of lens?
Yeah, exactly what you said. At 12, when the body started changing, the hormones came about, and there was this whole new consciousness raising that took place. I wasn't even aware before then, Suddenly my awareness increased, and that's when the search began. I knew something was missing, but I had no idea what it was. So I got involved with boys, relationships, experiment with drugs, environmentalism, social action, trying everything, looking for what could fill me up. This went on for years. And I looked into a whole number of religions. I got involved with Buddhism, Christian Science, all searching, because I had for sure, I didn't think spirituality was in my own religion, So I was all over the place, searching and searching. And yeah, that's what I did. I mean, I didn't know what was missing. And you'll see in the book, in the diary entries, it's hysterical. I mean, I'm saying this really deep stuff, and then I'm so excited to try smoking, it's all mixed up. It's all confusion. And like I talked about, even in the magazines I was reading, I'm reading 17 magazine, and one page is about how to diet, and the next page is strawberry shortcake recipes. Like,
That's not unique. Yeah,
confusion,
very much.
just confusion. And here, it was just the beginning of time for women's equal rights. And like at my high school, I started the Women's Forum. It was the first women's forum for, equal rights for women. And it was real, like, I didn't want to take the home economics class because that's for girls. I want to be in woodworking with the boys. I was and I was rebellious and fighting for these things. So not knowing what exactly.
You're fighting for.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes, I see exactly what you mean. And the thing is that through this process, Bracha, do you feel that what Judaism offers in terms of spirituality, in terms of other religions that you study, Buddhism, Stoicism, whatever, like different philosophies out there, do you feel that there's all of them together, there's some core denominators that they share among all the different religions and all the different philosophies out there? And did you really focus primarily on that core denominator, or did you kind of like directed yourself in one extreme versus the other?
Yeah, both. I would say both. I tried to, I'm always trying to learn and become as expert as I can in the amazing wisdom of my roots. At the same time, of course, I love the universality of it. I love the oneness. And like, I love doing yoga, for instance, and seeing all the similarities. Yoga is about unity.
Yes.
And that's what Judaism is all about, unity. I mean, we have the Shema, which is the most important declaration that we make. It's all about unity. It's about seeing the oneness.
Mhm.
And that's really what I learned, is that that's the highest level of pleasure that there is. And it's the highest level of our soul, that part where we see how we're all connected. We're connected to all beings and all things on earth, synergistically, energy-wise. Even that's what Einstein was showing, even how matter and energy are all ultimately connected. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, studying cosmology, studying, astrophysics and all really opens your mind. I studied metaphysics as well. And that really opened my mind, not just in the religious aspect, but more about what's going on around us, and not just on Earth, but outside and outer orbit. Okay.
Exactly.
And a lot of people have the difficulty in understanding how everything is going on around us. They feel that, some people say, well, we all live in some kind of matrix. Okay, the movie itself, has a lot of good analogy to it, but I'm not going to go too deep into it, or else this podcast is going to last 4 hours. But I feel that there is, God give us the free will to think the way we want. It gives us the free will to be able to act the way we want, but there's consequences to our action. We all decide to be able to live an honest life, to live a spiritual life, to live all of this. But then, of course, you've got a few exceptions to the rules that they try to fight the system, okay, spiritually, economically, financially, etc. But they don't realize they're doing harm to themselves. They are actually shooting themselves in the leg. Okay. And the thing is that they all think that, yes, karma is going to hit me later on, maybe when I'm dead, whatever it is. So I don't mind, but they don't realize that everything of what they do today is going to have not just a repercussion on their own life, but their legacy and everything that follows after them. So for them, but the mind is all about instant gratification, Bracha. What happens to me now? I'm going to be wealthy now. I don't care about the rest now, but it will have repercussion.
Yes, exactly. What I learned about, what changed my life back then, was the concept of the pleasure ladder. What brings lasting pleasure in life? So immediate pleasure comes from all the physical pleasures, but we can change that. That's when we use them negatively, they become addictions, when they're used for comfort. But really, all the physical pleasures were designed for our ultimate pleasure, to lift us up both physically and spiritually. those who use it just for greed, or that's what it becomes when it becomes an addiction. It becomes like a counterfeit pleasure. It's not being used fully, and a person is not deriving the greatest pleasure possible from it. When we do, and that's only the lowest level of pleasure, it fills both it nourishes both our body and our soul when we experience gratitude, when we eat natural foods, when we spend time in nature, when we move, when we dance, when we music, all of these things bring us a pleasure that has the potential to uplift both our body and our soul. So those that just are embedded in greed are missing out really on so much pleasure, the real pleasure that lasts.
Now, when it comes to your own personal journey and struggles with food and eating disorders, do you sometimes deal with body dysmorphia? With when you look at yourself, do you still either feel overweight or too thin or in between or whatever it is that you always have to kind of either go on a diet or basically fast or not give enough yourself food, etc.? Do you still deal with those challenges and those struggles, or that were overcome?
Yeah, thank God I never had that problem, actually. I don't know. I seem to always have a realistic sense of who I was in that way. So that was never my problem. And now I'm just happy with how I am. And, I don't have those kind of feelings. Thank God. I'm very grateful. Yeah.
So when it comes to writing all those books, for children's books and all that, why did you target that specific market?
Yes, because I wanted to write to that little girl that I was, that had no idea she was a spiritual being.
Okay.
I'm writing to that young person that's still out there, so many out there now. And I want to show that if you recognize that you're a spiritual being and you gain the skills to have joy in life early on, you don't have to play catch up the rest of your life. Your life can be about shining your beautiful soul and helping other souls to shine.
But how, because obviously when you deal with different genres and when you deal with writing books for children, obviously you cannot think in a matter of an adult. You have to write in a matter of 5 or 6 or 8 years old that could understand you. How do
Yes.
you basically dumb it down, kind of thing?
No, the truth is, I'm telling you, I identify as a 6-year-old. That is the story. I
Okay.
really do. In certain ways, I haven't grown up. My sense of wonder and curiosity about the world is so there that I can just get into that mindset. I'm in it anyway, so that's where I am. It's not hard for me to be the 6-year-old in my books. Yeah.
Do you feel that somehow, somewhere, this is a sign of especially when people go through trauma, Bracha, they create or they have a dissociated disorder, which is creating an identity that came up at a certain age in their life where they try to cope with the pain and the stress that they had. And this identity stays with them for the rest of their life. Some of them,
Yeah.
1, 5, 10, 100, it depends on the
Yeah.
situation. I deal with dissociative disorders. So do you think there was an identity that you created, a persona about yourself that never really allowed to detach itself from you?
So this is great. Thank God I didn't suffer from really any traumas in my childhood. It was a very sweet, quiet childhood. But there's a belief that many of us that came back to our roots, it's like really interesting to become an Orthodox Jew in this modern day and age. There's a belief that's very common now that we were the souls that were cut off during the Holocaust, that we went through a trauma. Maybe I was a 6-year-old when I was exterminated back then. Who knows, But there's a belief that so many of us that came back to our roots that weren't brought up this way were souls that were cut off as children early during the Holocaust.
So do you think it's some sort of reincarnation into your body?
Yeah, yes.
It's like a deja vu kind of thing that you can remember things of the Holocaust? Or is it like just something that it's an identity that just came into your soul that combined, that intertwined with it, and it stayed with you?
It could be. I don't have deja vu feelings like that, but other people do. There's a new book out about this. Her name is Sarah Yocheved Rigler. I can't remember the name of the book, but it's fascinating. It just came out recently with so many Jews and non-Jews reporting their experiences from the Holocaust, and they were born way afterwards, you know? So I don't have memories of that at all, but I relate to it. In fact, what got me to start writing at all was Anne Frank. When I read the diary of Anne Frank, that's when I started my own diary. Yeah.
And is that diary a part of your memoir? This is what you compiled all of that together?
That's what that diary that I started, right, is part of my memoir, exactly. And I wrote, the first entry is, I'm starting this because I just read the diary of Anne Frank. Exactly.
Wow.
Yes.
So now, do you keep writing books for children, or after 40 of them, you said, okay, I think I've met my purpose. I've met my, my need to feel fulfilled, kind of thing?
Yes, I always feel that way. I keep saying, I'm done. I've done everything I wanted to do in life. And then someone calls me and they say, we need a book about this. We need a book about, okay, all right. And then what happened is I felt I'm done. I felt like I accomplished my goal, but obviously I'm still here. So I haven't, you know? So like, then my youngest children, that's why you thought I was a publisher. My youngest children started a publishing company.
Wow.
So they with my newest book, they did not want me to submit it to a traditional publisher, as I've always been doing. And they said, no, from now on, we want to be the publishers. So that's the direction that we're going in now.
Excellent. Wow, that's really innovative and very entrepreneurial minded. That's I mean, they're Jewish. This is understandable. So when it comes to now, from this point forward into writing, are your books primarily a story, or is it just something that is related to your own personal journey that you had? Because like you said, it's like the 6-year-old is writing that book, the 6-year-old. What kind of like stories do you put in? I mean, are they sequels of your past books, or is it just a complete new different environment that you write?
Okay, well, some books are series because when they're very popular, the publisher wants me to keep doing a series. So some of them are, but other books, during the pandemic, I got a call from one mother. She calls me up crying, you've got to write a book about why eating junk food is bad for children, why they need to exercise, why they need to get good sleep, you know? So I said, I'd love to write a book like that. I just don't exactly know how to do it. So I go to sleep. I wake up 3 nights. When I woke up like 3 nights later, I keep a pad by my bed. And there it is. I have the title. I have exactly how to do the whole book. I'm scribbling away, you know. I call her up. I go, okay, I can do it. I got it, you know. And that's kind of how it goes, you know. I'm just a channel. We're just channels. And when we're flowing, you know, there's an abundance of ideas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for all of the listeners who are thriving authors, or those who actually wants to sit down and start writing their first book, what would be the best advice that you could give them, Bracha?
Okay, I have great advice. Here it is. It takes 20 years and 20 minutes to write a picture book, because so many people I meet tell me they are walking around with this idea in their head for a picture book for 20 years. And I say, now just spend 20 minutes writing it down and you've got it. Just do it. I've helped so many people with getting their books published. I tell them where to do it, where to send it, how to do it. And so many of these people now are published authors too. So it's a big joy to get it out of your head and out into the world.
Absolutely. It kind of clears your mind, because it's like suffocating your mind with those thoughts, but not able to put them into paper. And a lot of people have that struggle or that discipline to be able to do that. So as you said it yourself, the best, I mean, I've written 10 books. I know exactly how much it takes to be able to write But Bracha, that's actually an amazing, amazing advice. So you listen at the listeners, this is something to really take into consideration. But on that note, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. Now, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us. And thank you again, Bracha, for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible story.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And we hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode. And I'm also very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 11 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories, just like the one that you listened to today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. You learn to write by writing and by reading, and thinking about how writers have created their characters and invented their stories. If you're not a reader, don't even think about being a writer. The same goes with everything else in life. It is important to have a feeling of how others formulate a bunch of words to construct a book. It's easy to have an idea of what to write, but it's not as simple to bring an idea into a book that can inspire others. Depending on your genre, there's always the same core strategy in writing books by starting with the skeleton, the essence you want to share to the world. Once you have met that requirement, you can start adding the meat and muscle into the skeleton to eventually create that masterpiece. More exposed you are in reading, more ideas you can gather to write the next Harry Potter. Best luck in your journey. My name is Dr. Dan Amzallag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.